Welcome everybody to Can Enable Fitness's Blind Bulk Series. This is going to be a bulking series as a visually impaired person because I am going to be getting married in 20 weeks, which is very exciting. But I do also want to mess with my physique in the meantime. It's always fun to have some sort of deadline or event, some sort of appearance to be able to peak out for, whether it be a competition, really need to do performance things, or even something, again, like a wedding, where it's fun to mess with the physique and see what you can accomplish. I find that deadlines are really good at keeping me in check and giving me sort of an end date, so I am really able to stay focused in from there. And I've decided that in order to get ready for my own wedding, I want to do 12 weeks of bulking and then 8 weeks of cutting, so that I'm able to get up from about 241 pounds right now up to a healthy 250 without hopefully gaining too much fat, and then whittle down from there and see what that 8-week cut gets me. So I'm going to be producing this series weekly with these different videos on different topics that I think are pertinent for people who are blind or visually impaired and want to focus on being able to gain muscle in a healthy way, be able to exercise appropriately, talk about diet a little bit, as well as then after this fun 12 weeks, the less fun stuff of being able to lose weight in a smart way while also being able to keep a lot of muscle mass on. So today, let's go ahead and talk about how I'm structuring things from a training standpoint, and next week I'll talk about my nutrition. So this week I was been putting together my program, and I know that I want to hit things a little bit more often than you necessarily would if it was just for performance or making sure that we're not running into any sort of fatigue issues. I'm okay pushing things a little bit harder right now in order to really push certain muscle groups extra, and then if I need to dial back on those, let's say in 4 to 6 weeks, and then refocus on some other ones, that's going to work more than fine. So I'm tapering off the lower body volume right now. My lower body tends to hang on to muscle mass a lot easier than my upper body does, and I don't really care to have even bigger thighs. I have a lot of issues finding pants as is. So I'm focusing on the front squat and the deficit deadlift with a 4-inch deficit, so really, really low down there as my main strength movements, and that's going to be for the next 9 weeks. I'm also going to be focusing on some heavier farmer's carries, as well as being able to do a fun cluster set on my front squats where I back off the weight and I do a fairly challenging 8, rest 15 seconds, perform a set of 2, and then perform that 4 total times. So it's 8, 2, 2, 2, 2 with 15 seconds of rest in between. If you've never done this before with a fairly challenging weight, that's like an 8 to 12 rep max for you. Try this, just make sure you're in a really safe space, and then you will definitely come to regret it. It can get very, very difficult, especially if you're slowly progressing up those weights over the weeks, but I've noticed that this keeps my quads intact a lot because I'm approaching failure in my quads over and over, and it tends to really help my leg development and be able to maintain size and strength for now. So for the deficit deadlifts, I'm going to be working in sets of 5, then 3, then 1 in order to top out at about 5 singles at 515, 525. We'll kind of see how things go from there, how I'm managing fatigue, everything like that. I'm not too worried about that right now because I only have 2 lower body days a week. We have a reverse hyper that I'll show you guys here in a little bit here at home now. So I'm able to traction up my back a lot more, which is really helpful with my level of scoliosis. And then I know that only those 2 days a week of frequency, I'm going to be able to keep the volume fairly low on my low back and be able to help things out. So what I'm thinking right now, I might have to modify in order to make sure I'm getting enough stimulus into certain parts because I'm trying to get wider shoulders, a lot more shoulder development, some more triceps, a little bit more bicep work since I don't tend to do that very well. I'm not focused on curls very much, and then also a wider back. Is I'm doing those things that I want to focus on more often, especially since these are muscle groups that don't tend to stay beat up for 3-4 days in a row, is things I'm going to be able to repeatedly train. So I'm going to be hitting, let's see, my shoulders as well as overhead press progression with 10 sets of 5, accumulating a lot of volume with a big compound movement, and then a little bit of biceps as well. And I'm actually going to do this really cool old school 5 sets of 5 thing where it's from this old Canadian strongman named Doug Hepburn, where he would even do cheat reps in order to be able to get his 5 sets of 5 after he started fatiguing through his sets, and then eventually you're able to turn those into stricter reps and up the weight and everything like that. So it's a really, really good way to get a big stimulus into your biceps, which I've never really done. So I'm excited to see what happens with that. My next day would be my deadlift day. I really like to have my deadlifts earlier in my week because then I can put a lot of focus and energy into them. and make sure that I'm not too beat up. I want to be fairly well rested for those. So again, that's gonna be the deficit deadlifts, and then I'm doing a couple sets at the same weight, whatever I did for my deficit deadlifts, 2 sets of 5 of normal deadlifts, and then just a little bit of hypertrophy work in order to help fill things out. A little bit of traps, a little bit of calves, and then also a little bit of just general hamstrings, especially flexing at the knee, in order to make sure I address that aspect of the hamstring. And then I get to move on to the next day, which is going to be my proper back day. Those days I'm going to be doing, actually did this last night, 5 sets of a bent over row. I'm going fairly heavy and then backing off from there. And by the end of the year, I want to be able to do 335 for 12 fairly strict reps, getting a really good contraction and big range of motion. So I worked up to a couple sets of 6 in the freezing cold barn last night at 275 and then back down. And then I'm doing 5 sets of a vertical pulling motion, hopefully pull-ups, but again, the barn was below 0 last night, so I decided to save my hands and not have them getting metal burnt, and instead went and did some slow eccentric pull-ups in our basement gym. And then from there, I do 5 more sets of upper back, 5 more sets of lats, and then finish off with a little bit of grip if I want. Grip is something that I tend to focus on an awful lot. I'm trying not to focus on it more than 2 days a week, but it's always really difficult for me because I'm always trying to chase these fun records. That tends to be where I thrive a little bit. My next day is going to be shoulders and chest. I'm actually going to be doing that here in a little bit. Again, with 10 sets of 5, starting out on the regular military barbell press, and then being able to go from there. Again, my shoulders really tend to fill out really well with that accumulated amount of volume, especially at not too high of a percentage, but being able to get 50 good high quality reps in and slowly progressing that weight up has tended to work for me in the past. And as long as I'm eating well, hopefully that's the case again. I've also been able to mess with some different shoulder variations, especially going behind the neck, that really put the delts under really good tension. And I'll be able to show you guys some of those exercises throughout this series. Also, hitting the chest. I know I'm only going to be doing it once a week, but I am going to be interplaying some push-ups and some dips into some other days. So it's going to be getting a little bit of like a half day worth of stimulus here and there as well. The next day is going to be front squats, where I'm really pushing those, and then the 8-2-2-2-2 thing I was talking about, and then some farmer walks, even fatigued a little bit. It's going to kind of even things out and make sure that I'm able to test my grip, my upper back, and my legs all at the same time, and slowly work that up. By the end of the year, I want to be carrying 350 pounds per hand for 50 feet. And so that's going to help start getting me used to that, even though I'm going to have to cut down later. But at least it'll give me a bit more familiarity with it, since I haven't done farmers consistently in a while. And then my last day is just going to be a general shoulders and arms day, making sure to kind of touch on those aspects that I want to grow a bit more, at least for the first 4 to 8 weeks of this bulk. And then that's going to round out my week. I'm going to have one rest day and then hit it again. So feel free to stick around for this blind bulk series, again, as I'm calling it, and talk about a lot of different adaptations that I make as a blind person in order to make sure that I'm able to perform well and safely, and then also have my diet, nutrition, sleep, all those different things taken care of as well. So I'm very excited to take you guys along the ride. This is going to be probably a pretty unique series, because me with a visual impairment, plus doing a lot of my lifting out in a cold barn in the country in the winter in Illinois and things like that. Hopefully you'll be able to garner some tips and even a little bit of motivation in order to pursue whatever goals you need to be pursuing. I am always open to questions, so feel free to reach out, and stay tuned for the rest of the series.